Hmm. Well, good morning, everyone. This morning, my talk, it's a very tender morning. It's a very tender talk. And my talk this morning is entitled Life Beyond Death, the Immortal Soul. You know, as many of you know, my mom passed from this earthly realm on Friday, June 23rd. And could everyone mute? I think, Dawn, are you muted? Make sure you're muted. I'm hearing a little noise. I remember telling my mom last month about a dear friend who was near the end of her life. And my mom was so tender in her response to me. She said, I know that you feel really sad about your friend, and I know that you want me to be sad with you, but I have a different feeling about it. I feel there's something to look forward to where I'm going. I have a good feeling about it, so I don't feel the sadness. And, it brings me so much comfort to remember those words right now. As this grief that I'm feeling, it just runs so very deep. But I feel like, our society is a bit grief averse. And I think that we would be a lot healthier if we weren't, if we welcomed it and we welcomed all that it brings. And we gave ourselves to it when it was time to give ourselves to it and feel it fully. Because I am so close to my mom, I felt, and knew the exact moment that she left her body, even though she was in an ambulance and I was driving right behind her. And we've been having these profound communications from her present energy body and her present form. We all face the change of a dress. We all do. This earthly body has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it is wise to contemplate that and to be ready for it, to be at peace with it. And even like my mom, to be curious and interested in the journey of the soul after it completes this incarnation. My first spiritual teacher, Michael Singer, he said, death is not a morbid thought. It is the greatest teacher in all life. A wise person affirms, if with one breath all this could change, then I want to live at the highest level while I'm alive. Yes. I took a class some years ago, I think I've talked about it, with a Tibetan Lama on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And this wise woman Lama, in the very first class, as soon as she walked in, she said, death is natural. It's normal. It happens to everyone. We should get comfortable with it, get past denial, get past the avoidance and the dread, and be curious about the experience of it. And the fact that it's inevitable should urge us towards greater diligence in our spiritual practice so that we make the utmost effort to use our time to best advantage. I knew with my mom that time was precious and short. I knew it. And I knew it was fleeting. And I have to say now that I am so incredibly grateful that I have spent this last year living in Ashland as close to her as I could have been, and that I've been in many years. Spirit designed that for me, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. So to understand the journey of the soul and explore the deathless self, we look to the greatest spiritual masters and their teachings. Both Jesus and Buddha are described as transcending death. And again, remember, they were the great examples, not exceptions. But they showed us the way. And, I think the way that they did transcend death was very similar, but the way they're described in transcending it is different. Their stories are different. You know the story of Jesus' resurrection. He died, and after 3 days, he rose into a resurrected body. And he existed in that form for 40 days, they say, and he ascended after that into heaven. And the description of his resurrected body is different than that of his earthly body before death. In his resurrected body, he could suddenly appear and disappear. In the locked upper room, Jesus suddenly appeared in the midst of his disciples, and he didn't have to eat, he didn't have to rest, and his resurrected body was able to ascend when his earthly ministry was finished. And so, there seemed to be a more subtle body that Jesus inhabited after bodily death, after bodily death for 40 days, right? Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, they speak of that transitional period. They say 49 days, that is between dying and rebirth, and they call it the Bardo. And they describe the experience as you having only a mind, you being only mind, okay? So that you could call it a mental body, since you no longer have a physical body. Sometimes it's called an astral body or a energy body. Feeling my mom, I'm definitely feeling it as an energy body. And they say if you've made a lot of progress in this life in meditation practice, if you've mastered quieting and concentrating your mind, you have much more ability to control your experience during the time in the Bardo. It's a very important time. And, in Jesus's case, in my view, he had great mastery over his mind. And so he was likely so powerful, he could make himself seen to his disciples in the Bardo state and offer some final teachings, right? The evening after Mom died, she died at 4:49. Late that evening when I finally got home, I felt her presence in my room so strong. And we did this whole life review. We did the whole life review together. It was an incredibly powerful experience. And it seemed that she was communicating with me psychically and also through the candle flickering. In Tibetan Buddhism, if you're at a high level of spiritual mastery, it's possible to be enlightened during this Bardo period. And that means to fully merge into the light and be free from being reborn. And to me, that description is synonymous with the ascension in the Christian view, when you ascend. The way Christians describe Jesus' ascension is that he now sits at the right hand of God. And the Buddhists call that nirvana. They just have a different terminology, but it's the same thing. And as I communicate with Mom's soul, we think on these things. I'll be in deep prayer. I have been in such an altered state, absolutely otherworldly, truly, for these last 9 days. And I will continue that 40 more days, these 49 days of the Bardo state. I have my brothers with my mom's picture lighting candles every day for these 49 days as well. But I'll tell you a kind of funny, amazing story. Years ago, I remember Mom and I sitting around the kitchen. We lived in this house on the lake. I think I was 19 or somewhere around there. And we would talk about how we're going to connect with each other if one of us left the planet, and we made this very, very serious pact and agreement that we were going to find a way to connect with each other if one of us was gone, was out of the body. And we said that it was going to be at 9 o'clock at night. And I think we might have said we were going to, get together every Monday night at 9. But what's so funny is I had forgotten that we'd agreed to do that a very long time ago. But for sure, every single night, like around 8:39, I feel Mom's presence. I feel it the strongest. It's so palpable. And it's so much stronger than the rest of the day when I am connecting with her also. And I just sit up and I go into this meditation and I have this really effortless bliss. I feel merged in the light and I feel merged with her mind, and I sing her mantras and I say her prayers, and we have chats, we have communication. Still doing the life review in a lot of ways. My beloved teacher Alma, I've let them know in India that mom is in her transitional state now, and I'm feeling her tremendous support from my mom and for me. And then this Friday, we went to prepare mom's body in a very sacred ceremonial way for cremation. And when we saw her body, I couldn't believe the peace that I saw on her face. She was so peaceful. And I felt so much comfort. I felt so assured that, you know, she is in such a beautiful state, and that this intensity of prayer and sadhana that I am doing in honor of her life and soul, that it is definitely making a difference. You know, her face looks so different than the way it looked in the hospital, that traumatic experience that we all had there. So we washed her, we anointed her with frankincense, the holiest of essential oils, and lemongrass. And I read the Katha Upanishad, which I feel is the most powerful teaching on the immortal soul. I highly recommend reading the Katha Upanishad. And then we sang chants and prayers, and we put rose petals. My brother and I had bought all these roses and peeled the petals off, and we put rose petals all around her in her hands and all around her feet and on her heart and around her head. And I draped her in my pink shawl, and they were pink rose petals. And it was so healing for me and my older brother. All the great religions, they describe leaving the body and merging with God, with the ultimate reality, and being set free from any need to return to form. And, you know, if we're truly, truly done here, I believe we can make that choice if we've lived a deeply conscious life. You know, but in the early days of connecting with mom, those first couple days, I found myself letting her know it was whatever was right for her, that she could merge back into the utterly blissful light, the infinite being she could merge into, but she could also incarnate once again if she chose. And I felt her so aware of the intense love that we three children and her share. We have such a close, bonded family. And we can all reincarnate and be together again on this earth. You know, we can play different roles, change it up, you know. It's really all right. That's what I saw. Because the Creator is this immense love. And it just gifts us and gives us whatever we want, so we can come back. We can come back if that's what our soul chooses. Sometimes we want more time in form in this realm. You know, I sense a part of mom wants a good long rest. You know, she really wore that body out well. She wore it well. But another part I feel in her wants to play on earth upon the earth a bit more, you know. She so very much loved all things of the natural world. She gave that to me. One of her first gifts she gave, of so many that she gave to me. She loved biology, and she was a microbiologist at Johns Hopkins. She loved bugs, so she studied entomology at the University of Florida. She loved plants and took people on edible weed walks. She loved rocks and had a rock shop in Weed, California. And yes, she loved weed, another form of plants. Now, the story of the Buddha transcending death, that's a little bit different, and it's interesting. It's really interesting. You know, the Buddha was known before he was the Buddha, before he was the awake one. He was Siddhartha, and he was a prince, and his father wanted him to be a king. And his father was told by a prophet that was not Siddhartha's destiny, that he was destined to be a great spiritual master. And his father didn't want that. So he sheltered Siddhartha. He kept him cloistered in the palace and created a false reality where there's no suffering, right? And he hid illness, he hid old age, and he hid death from his son. And he made his son think life is always a paradise. But one day, Siddhartha got very curious. What is outside those palace walls? And he got his attendant Channa to take him. And he saw 4 things on that excursion that completely changed his life. The first thing he saw was a man who was sick. And this shocked and disturbed Siddhartha. He'd never seen illness. He'd never seen the suffering of illness. The next thing he saw was a man that was old. And he'd never seen old age, so he was really upset by that. That had been hidden from him. And then the third thing he saw a dead body. And he couldn't comprehend it. He asked Channa, what is that? And Channa replied, that is the destiny of every one of us. It is death. We all die. And Siddhartha was deeply grieved at this realization. And so then the fourth thing, most importantly, that he saw was a yogi, an ascetic that was meditating and was obviously in this deep, profound state of bliss and peace, even amongst all the suffering in the world. And Siddhartha realized that this yogi who was discovering that there was a way out of this suffering was what he wanted to be. He wanted to realize his true nature. That is the way out of the suffering. So Siddhartha devoted his life to awakening, and he deserted life as a prince, and he sat under a beautiful Bodhi tree, and he meditated for years, and he did sadhana, and he realized his true nature. He became enlightened, and upon his death, he merged into light, into nirvana. So it is another story of overcoming death. It's a different story than Jesus' story, but the teachings of both, the teachings that they both offered us, is to realize we are the I am. We are not I am the body. We are the I am. We inhabit the body for a time, but it's like a suit we wear, and hopefully we get to wear it out well. And then we lay it down. And then the I am is. The I am is eternal. As I was reading, this talk to Mom, in her present energy body state this week, I would be drawn up into bliss because I could feel her. She was bringing bliss. She was in much, much more light without that heavy, dense body. And she loved the truth. She loved hearing the truth. She loved the words of truth. And I could feel her feeling the I am, free from the body, free from the body, free from I am the body. So the teachings from both traditions, Buddhism and Christianity, they focus on one essential thing, and that is how we live determines our death experience and what happens after that. If we've concentrated our attention on truth, with a capital T, truth, and on love, and on peace, and on wisdom, that will carry over. If we have let go, if we have purified our mind, and we keep our minds pure and our hearts pure, that carries over. And if we've struggled with unforgiveness or resentments, if there's unattended anger, well, that can be seen so much more clearly in the Bardo when you're just the mental body. What I was feeling in the Bardo, especially that first night in that life review, is there is so much love. There's so much love that is the ultimate truth. And that love just holds the soul when it's reviewing its life so that everything can be let go. It's so important to let everything go and not hold on to any unforgiveness or any hurt. We see everything with new eyes, and we have this humility, and we see where we came up short. And so we need to also, feel that love allows for us to forgive ourselves as well. I felt Mom, she was asking for so much forgiveness, and I was asking for so much forgiveness, and we were feeling it coming from the great love. It was just, of course, yes, of course, it's effortless to forgive all of it. And I could feel all this happening with her and helping her become liberated from many places. She was still holding contracted energy. It was all being given back to the light. And I could see in the life review that it was all for love. Every experience, every struggle, every hardship was to gain the most precious pearls of wisdom, to bring back and offer to infinite love itself. And I saw that when we leave this world, we take our whole life experience and we bring it to love and we offer it as the most sacred thing we have to offer. And I feel like love just bows down in utter gratitude and reverence and honoring as it receives our life experience and all that we learned. And that gift back to love expands it into ever greater infinite love. And it is all so valuable and so precious and so honored and received. And in this presence of infinite love, the soul sees as it's never seen before. It is an extremely grace-filled moment when we can see that all is forgivable and forgiven, and we can let go and release so much. This Bardo is a very delicate time for the soul in the Bardo. It's where loving help is so beneficial. That's why having everyone pray for my mom, everyone willing. If we have even one person with a refined mind that can stay connected to pure being, it allows the soul to feel deeply supported in the work of life review and transition in the Bardo state. Sometimes the soul's not able to let it all go, and sometimes in the soul's latest life, they were not able to feel, experience, and give and receive a lot of love. And sometimes there's quite a bit of a sense of incompleteness or unfinished business. And so that carries over. Sometimes there are deep attachments to relationships with those still living. And so that brings me to discuss reincarnation. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, founders of Unity, they believed in reincarnation. Charles said the teaching that man and his spiritual ego lives over and over in many personalities is as old as religion itself, because it's found in every religion under the sun. Jesus seemed to be speaking of reincarnation when he mentioned that John the Baptist had been Elijah in a previous incarnation. Jesus was a Jew, and the mystical tradition in Judaism has deep teachings on the journey of the soul after death and its next incarnation. The early church accepted reincarnation. It wasn't until 553 that Constantinople declared reincarnation heresy. And it seemed that they did so because they thought it afforded man too much time to strive for salvation. It's kind of funny. Myrtle Fillmore, in her healing letters, she wrote, "Those who find it a burden to stay in the body and go through the change called death will find that they are still a living soul, and they will again desire to live and to unfold and make use of the life which we now know. They will again be attracted to those who will help them build the physical body, and they will be born again as babes." Excuse me. The doctrine of reincarnation can be compared to life on earth as a school that has many grades. And that's something that my mom always said, "Kathy, this is our school. This is our school." It's a educational process, moving from limited and egoic consciousness into cosmic consciousness, unlimited. So in this broken, open state that I've been in, I feel such tenderness and love for all that it is to be human and to live and to die. I've been feeling this great love of the mother of all that is, that allows us all the time we need to learn. And if we're deeply attached and want to reincarnate with our nearest, dearest, we can. If we feel complete with Earth's school, we've done our work to free ourselves of every limited vibration and negative emotion, and our minds can easily merge in the absolute, and our hearts are completely open, we can experience liberation in the Bardo period, not return to form. But I see we have to be so tender with the ways that we feel attached to the ones we love most. I always knew that this would be the hardest thing in my life, and it definitely is. Losing a mother, it's like nothing else. Especially if you're so close, right? We want more lives together in form, and that's okay. One of the great mysteries of life here is to know such great love that it's transcendent. And I feel I've been gifted that with my mom. I've been reminding Mom how much she accomplished, how incredibly beautiful she was. I wish she would have known how incredibly beautiful she was. I don't think she fully realized that. And all the love that she shared with me and my brothers, my dear brothers, and they with her. I feel like she gets an A+ for this Earth School journey. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, love is really the only thing we can possess, keep with us, and take with us. So as I close this talk, I hope you will feel a little more peace with a very essential part of life that death is, and not fear it, but understand it, make friends with it, and see how it can be such a very great teacher. It is not an easy part of our experience and journey here. That is for sure. But it has a way, and grief has a way of affording us tremendous transformation and growth and opening and awakening. And so I pray for my beloved mother and for my beloved brothers. And I pray for each one of you. And I pray for all beings, that all beings may be free from suffering, may merge into the light while living and after this life, and that all beings may know their true eternal nature. May it be. Om Shanti.